If I had to guess, I'd say this is the most obscure game in my collection. After the success of his novel Timeline, Michael Crichton decided he could make a game out of it. He had evidently forgotten about the disastrous release of Trespasser, the Jurassic Park game, just a few years earlier, and so he created Timeline Computer Entertainment, a development studio purpose-built to make one game, Timeline. 1 year after the novel, Timeline was released for Windows 2000. It wasn't easy, but I made it work on my computer. Right off the bat, I'm not sure how to approach Timeline. This is the only game I know of that was ever based off a book, so there's no precedent on how to judge it. It's not licensed from the film. The awful Timeline movie didn't come out until 2003, so it's more like a companion to the book. Timeline starts out without much preamble. Archaeologist Professor Johnston traveled back in time to 14th century France and was captured by the ruler of Castleguard, Lord Oliver. For a licensed game, the cutscenes sure seem low rent. 2 years earlier, in Half-Life, the character models had moving mouths. In Timeline, the mouth animation looks like it was crudely drawn on a sticky note. You play as Chris Hughes, evidently a total idiot because his partners have to teach him how to control his own body.
The first thing you need to know is how to look around. For that, we use the mouse.
Kate and Barretto teach you to play the game, describing keyboard and mouse controls.
Take your mouse and slowly push it away from you. This will make you look up at the sky.
Yeah, I use inverted mouse. Deal with it. When references to mouse and keyboard commands are made in-game, it does take you out of the moment, and kills any sense of immersion you otherwise get. Timeline tries to get that immersion back by letting you push buttons with a hyperlink cursor, but it's too little too late. It's a neat feature, though, and one that was also done in Trespasser. Unlike in Trespasser, though, you don't have to smoosh your hand all over the keypads like a drunken caveman. After getting a history lesson from Kate, who represents the midget demographic, you go through a decontamination shower and into the time chamber room. If this looks familiar, it's because it's basically the start of Half-Life. For whatever reason, there are no technicians working for this multi-million-dollar quantum time travel venture, so you have to start the machine and run as fast as you can to get in before it takes off without you. Admittedly, the time travel sequence is pretty cool. Despite the shaky opening, the game does a decent job of keeping up the immersion while going through its set pieces. Behind the set pieces, though, the game is mostly filler. Simplistic, repetitive segments that drag on for too long. But without them, Timeline would be a glorified tech demo. Clocking in at under 2 hours and priced at $40 US, it's not hard to guess at Timeline's critical reaction. The only weapon you take back in time with you is a stun staff.
The stun staff is a stealth weapon only.
It's cool in principle. You can't kill anyone without rewriting history, so you have to find alternatives to bloodshed, like using the stun staff for a one-hit KO from behind.
You'll be fine.
You arrive in 14th century France in the same cave you departed from, along with the Munchkin and the guy with the car keys. Remember where we parked?
Don't worry. They aren't gone. We can call them back at any time with this marker.
Before you get very far, Decker shows up and kills Barretto. Decker's the bad guy. You can tell because he has a scar.
Oh no.
If you're wondering why Decker is so arbitrarily evil, the answer is in the book. If you haven't read the book, or you're like me and haven't read it in a while, you're shit out of luck. If you have read it, you'll know Decker was one of the first quantum time travelers and was driven insane by overuse of the time machine. Good old science fiction, where insanity always makes you evil. Because the only weapon you brought with you was an electric boffer, you and Kate make your escape by sliding down hills.
Whoa! It's slippery!
This isn't exactly a good interpretation of the novel. The segment is extremely short, but still manages to be boring and repetitive like all the filler in the game. Why are there so many steep hills shaped like water slides in this part of France?
My pack! I dropped my food!
So what? Oh, the food is medkits, apparently. Fine by me. Between levels, you get a brief cutscene that further abridges the events of the novel by compressing all the travel between locations. Your escape is made pointless because as soon as the next level starts, you're in town and Decker is right there.
Do not let them get away. Bring them to me.
He wants you brought to him, so why is he leaving? He could get you right now. Who cares, though? We finally get to have some combat. Out comes the stun staff. Let's tase some bitches.
Barrels near the gate.
No?
Throw the barrels at them.
Oh, it is on.
I can take it. Keep an eye on them.
Like Donkey Kong. Clearly this game was designed to be completed on a lunch break, and they didn't want to make it too hard. The goons come at you one by one, and accuracy is a non-issue because there are 119 barrels in this alley alone. With every guard in the city lying in the street concussed and bleeding from the splintered wood, Chris and Kate make their escape. Score 1 for non-violence. Since Barretto died and took the car keys with him, the only way to get home is to find the professor.
The tournament field is this way. It's the most likely place for the professor to be.
In order to get access to the tournament, you have to steal a tunic from the inn nearby to pose as a knight, and in order to gain access to the inn, you have to shoot some targets with a bow. The archery minigame is insultingly easy and is basically just filler to keep you in the area longer.
Chris, the inn. You can get inside now.
At the inn, you can steal a sword and get some lessons from a friendly footman. Even though it's the 14th century, he still gives you instructions in the form of keyboard and mouse commands. Wait a second.
Press the attack key.
And there goes my willing suspension of disbelief.
Nice sword.
Alright, let's duel some drunken knights. In keeping with the kill no one rule of time travel, and more importantly the ESRB's E rating for the game, your opponents will yield after you hit them enough times.
I surrender.
Of course he does, he's French. Then, holy shit, they just fade out? Why would that happen? Where was Eidos when this was being made? It's not like the sword fighting is even fun. You can't block and there's no timing. You just hold the attack button until they give up. The game tries to keep the tension high by having you sneak around the inn, but you don't need to. Go upstairs, find a knight's tunic, then stand around. The page who works for whoever you stole a tunic from is too stupid to tell you apart from his master, and he drags you to the jousting tournament. Well, most of that is just what I can infer from another cutscene. Panning the camera is not a substitute for gameplay. I wanted a medieval action-adventure. Instead, I got the Ken Burns effect. The game. The tournament is pretty rough. Most of the crowd are made of cardboard, your horse moves on rails, and despite being one of the more detailed environments in the game, it's barren. You couldn't microwave dinner in the time it takes to finish timelining, yet the entire game is so sparse. At least the tournament is kind of fun to play. You control the lance with your mouse and have to unseat 3 opponents to win. Your last opponent is Lord Oliver's right-hand man, Sir Guy. Since the game's budget must be running out by now, another cutscene takes Chris and Kate from the tournament to the castle apartments where the professor has been moved. Who's up for a stealth mission? Oh, but I'm getting ahead of myself. First there's a puzzle. It's not especially challenging, and for most gamers it probably doesn't rate as a puzzle. Timeline's target demographic is not veteran gamers. It's based on a book, it's so short you can't look directly at it or you'll suffer an epileptic seizure, and it's easy. If you're not a gamer, the jumping puzzles and combat might take a few tries to get past. In fact, you're probably the same person who needed to be taught how to use a mouse at the beginning of the game. There's nothing remarkable about the stealth level until the end cutscene. Chris and Kate can't get to the professor, but they can get to a secret passage which has a window to his room. That's not a loose brick or a gap, that's a full-on window! Chris could fit his whole head through that. Does nobody see them? Is nobody suspicious that he's talking to a hole in the wall? Since Chris and Kate can't get to the professor, they instead go to the mill to meet his friend Marcellus, who has the spare car keys and knows the secret passage to the town of La Roque, where Lord Oliver is taking the professor. Then the filler begins in earnest. Chris rides his trusty steed through the snaking streets of Castleguard amid the chaos of a French attack, ducking under signboards, jumping over fires, and generally trying not to get the horse stuck through a wall makes this the most challenging part of the game. It lasts about 3 minutes, which is roughly 3 minutes too long, but what else is new? For a long time, this was the least amount of fun you could have on a horse. Then came Oblivion. At the town gate, you meet with Kate and ditch your horses in favor of fast traveling to the mill. The front door is locked, and since there are no barrels nearby, Kate opts to take her chances with the water wheel. Inside the mill, there are a few jumping puzzles on spinning gears that will take you about 3.5 seconds if you've ever held a keyboard before in your life. After that, for fuck's sake, how many times are they going to rip off Half-Life? And whoever thought chompers were a fun puzzle? I'm so sick of these. But wait, there's more!
They killed Marcellus.
Oh what, you didn't see that coming? And then for lack of a better option, they take the quantum fax machine back to the present.
Fools, you'll never survive here.
Back in the present day, everything is going smoothly, for the most part. The time machine arrived a bit too early, which somehow translates to it being about 6 inches tall. Conveniently, Chris is standing on the control console and must jump up and down on the buttons, then ride the tiny roller coaster over to the return platform. This is another of the quite impressive set pieces of the game. It lasts about 1.5 minutes. I could have sworn the quantum fax only moved in time and not location, but our intrepid duo lands right next to the Green Chapel, where supposedly the secret entrance to La Roque is hidden. The door is locked, so you have to jump on a seesaw log and leave Kate outside. The interior of the chapel is easily the best looking environment in the game and is guarded by the Green Knight, a hulking, enigmatic protector of the secret passage. This is the most difficult puzzle in the game, but that's pretty relative. Difficult compared to the other 2 puzzles, yes, but you don't actually need to solve it. If you run away from the Green Knight for long enough, say 40 seconds, Kate gets on the earpiece and tells you how to figure it out.
Try crouching on the stone and let the wheel roll over you.
Since she's outside, I'm not sure how she figured it out herself, but how are you supposed to guess otherwise? Crouch on the 3 red crosses, flee from the knight, and Chris and Kate find an underground river. The whole game has been leading up to this, the longest, most boring, most spectacularly uninspired piece of filler in history. You have to haphazardly guide a small boat down endless tunnels, avoiding stalagmites and whirlpools. Despite aesthetic differences, this is the exact same as sliding down a hill or riding a horse in the street. Chris and Kate are separated somehow, which of course leads to Kate being captured. Chris goes to rescue her and the professor from the dungeon, where the only thing to protect against intruders is a single guard and an obnoxious maze of collapsed hallways. Chris unlocks Kate first, and then has to navigate the maze in reverse to find a crank with which to raise the professor's cage.
I can pick it.
Of course you can. Let me find some barrels.
I knew I could count on you.
Oh, we're not doing that thing? Man, I want to throw some more barrels. Now that the whole team is finally reunited, they can escape. The professor and Kate sneak off, leaving Chris to fend for himself. The game's 50-second long final sequence pits you against Sir Guy, Lord Oliver, and Decker in a row. Sir Guy and Lord Oliver give up just like any other guard in the game, even fading out when you beat them, but Decker is special. When you defeat him, he teleports away somehow. Seriously, do you need the machine or not? Does it move in space or just time? Make up your mind!
Yeah, you made it!
And that's the end. It really sneaks up on you, just when things were getting interesting. Chris, Kate, and the professor make it back to the present so you can finally eject the disc and bury it on the bottom shelf.
Transmission successful. They have the professor.
Total running time, 1 hour and 6 minutes. If I were being generous, and assuming it's your first time through, an hour and a half. Even if you're a complete noob but have never played a PC game before in your life, the game is still incredibly easy and will take you about 2 hours to complete. Licensed games usually have 1 or 2 redeeming features, thanks to their better-than-average budgets, and Timeline is no exception. The graphics, sticky note mouth flaps notwithstanding, are good, and the soundtrack, particularly the main theme, is great. Overall, though, fans of video games need not apply. It's too easy, too simple, and too short. Fans of the movie need not apply either, because the movie was dumb, and if you liked it, you're an idiot. Last of all, fans of the book need not apply. As a companion to the novel, it changes too much without expanding on the events of the book. For a history buff, the included Tour with Crichton segments are mostly just admissions of things they did wrong. Crichton lends his voice, but not his personality. The historical facts are enumerated with all the enthusiasm of Ferris Bueller's English teacher.
While we tour Castle Guard, we'll have a little scavenger hunt at the same time.
Okay, I'm done with this disco. Let's see if I can find another game to do, and I'll see you next time.
A jumper right up.
It doesn't hurt, so they won't make a sound. It's like they just fell asleep.